All right. Hi, everyone. I am super excited to be talking today about some local SEO strategies that can help amplify the impact of your website. So, we'll be talking a little bit about multi site, multi location healthcare groups. So, just excited to dive in. What you're going to be able to see today is your technical SEO foundation, setting that up, what that looks like, some on site SEO best practices, some Google business profile strategies, and creating an impactful SEO roadmap. So this will be pretty comprehensive, very in depth. I definitely probably will end up using the entirety of the 30 minutes, but I do have the Cardinal SEO team in the chat to answer any of your pressing questions. And if we have time at the end, I'll also answer some as well. But just a little bit about myself. So my name is Amber Ritchie. I'm the Associate Director of SEO here at Cardinal. I am in charge of developing all of the SEO strategies alongside my team, innovating as much as I can. The SERPs have been extremely volatile on the Google side. So, really, just here to make sure that I'm able to help our clients succeed in this definitely different landscape that it has been in the past. So, excited to go ahead and get started. So, technical SEO. What I like to call this is the overlooked and kind of unsung SEO hero. So, a lot of what your SEO is going to involve is starting at the technical SEO foundation. Content is always what people assume is the end all be all of SEO, but really, if Google isn't able to, crawl your website, then how will you be able to rank for the content that you're writing? So it's often forgotten, but it's something that you really need to put in the forefront of your mind. And with the introduction of SGE and the large amounts of AI generated content, technical SEO is really going to be the differentiator between all the different websites that are in the search results. So again, kind of like what I already said, you can write as much content as you'd like, but if Google isn't able to efficiently and effectively crawl that content, you're not going to see your rankings improve. You're not going to get those leads, and you're not going to increase your site visibility as a whole. So looking at some of those common technical SEO issues that a lot of these multi-brand and multi-location businesses are facing in the healthcare industry. These are the main pillars. There are some other things, but each of these are kind of its own bucket with different things inside of each of them. So looking at site architecture, this is probably one of the most important parts of your technical foundation because it does impact your site's crawlability. So when we're looking at site architecture, we're talking about URL structures. How is your main navigation organized? Are you optimizing the sitemap so that way Google is able to crawl it? Things of that nature. Oftentimes when we're looking at multi-healthcare and multi-site groups, we are just seeing a lot of unoptimized site URL structures. There's not folder paths. Everything might be off of the root, or there's just a lot of inconsistency. You might have locations under dash locations, or you might have locations also under partnership, or you might have it under practice, things like that. And there's all of these different pages that are saying the exact same thing, but because they're just on so many different folder structures, you don't even realize that they're cannibalizing each other. So that is one of the main things that we see a lot in this area. We also see a lot of poorly optimized main navigation. So whether your main navigation is just too thin, there's not enough content, so people don't know what you do, or it's just so overwhelming and expansive that people don't know where they're supposed to click to find the information that they need. So that's the other thing that is really holding people back from a site architecture perspective. And then kind of going into a little bit of the crawlability as well as site architecture is your internal linking. Do you have internal links between all of these pages on your website? Or are they kind of separated? Users have to go back to the main navigation or the home page or the core location or services page to find what they need. So having internal linking throughout the site's content in the blog in all of those child pages is also going to help improve your site architecture and your crawlability. Again, crawlability is also one of the number one things that really impacts your site's technical SEO foundation and visibility. Google crawling the website. Things that we often see that are causing a lot of crawlability issues include just again a poor site architecture, broken internal links. So if Google's constantly crawling your website, but it's hitting a lot of 404 errors, that's something that can impact your crawlability. Looking at a lot of unoptimized sitemaps. So either just having sitemaps that contain prioritization issues, so everything's the same priority, or thinking about how often it's being updated and you aren't saying frequently. Looking at robots.txt files, having crawl delays in there that are too high or just unnecessary to include at all. So all of these things can impact how Google is able to actually crawl your website. And you want to make sure that these are all optimized as much as possible to help increase your rankings. Header tags is another huge one that we see all the time. So a lot of people will pick headers based off of styling reasons instead of what's going to help Google understand the context of your actual page. So when we're thinking about H1s, that's the most important header on a page. We often see that people have multiple H1s, missing H1s on pages, or just no formal header structure at all. So there aren't really any H1s, there's not H2s, it's just all the exact same text on the page. And to create headers, there's just bolded text. So these are definitely things that you'll want to correct to make sure that Google is able to understand what to rank your content for, understand that the H1 has the priority keyword that you want Google to rank the page for, and then just having header 2s and H3s to ensure that people can read your content in an efficient way, and that it's easy and for them to understand and it's well organized. When we're looking at page speed, this is not a direct ranking factor, but it is important in those tie-breaking situations, and it can really influence your user experience. So you want to make sure that you have a decent site speed and page load speed. We like to consider anything above 70 a good page load speed as far as using the page speed web dev tools goes, but really core web vitals, it's what's important. You'll see that in Google Search Console. So you'll want to just look there and see if the URLs on your website are good, if there needs improvement, or if they're poor. If you have a lot of poor URLs, then that's when you really start to look at, hey, how can I improve my page speed? Whether that's lowering the number of plugins that you have, rethinking the elements that you have on the page and the modules. But those are all things that you'll want to consider and something that we see pretty often as far as technical SEO issues go. So then again, I really want to highlight crawlability. As I said, crawlability is just extremely important. It touches so many aspects of your technical SEO foundation. But what does crawlability mean and what is crawling? So crawling just refers how Google is able to go through and discover new pages on your website. So bots will land on one of your pages and they'll be able to crawl all of the internal links on that page, whether it's the main navigation, the footer, actual inserted links that you did manually, things of that nature. And that's how it continues just to discover new URLs. So when a new page is created, adding it to the main navigation or adding it throughout the body copy of a lot of different pages, that's why you start to see that page get crawled frequently and start to see it rank very well. And that's why it's just necessary to make sure that you have a lot of those internal links. Indexing, on the other hand, just refers to how Google is storing and organizing information in the search results. But Google, again, has to crawl your page to index it, which is why these two kind of go hand in hand. And then once that is all done and completed, your page is indexed, your website's indexed, that's when you really start to see the rankings improve on the level that you're looking to. And you'll see success there once you have these two things completed from the very beginning. So what does a proper site structure look like for crawling and indexing sake? So you can see here that everything is bucketed. You can see that there's treatment programs, you see substance abuse, you see mental health, and then you see all these child pages living underneath that. So you always want your site to be in some form of folder structure to help Google understand the relation of all these pages. And you can see a lot of green dots. So that's just letting you know that this is a well-optimized flow. The crawl depth is really low. There's internal links going through it. So that's why it's really important for you guys to bucket everything under these folder structures and create these child page relationships. And then if you are looking at an unoptimized site structure, you'll see basically everything just living off of one exact page or everything off of the root. So you can kind of see here in this little part that there's all of these things shooting up, and then you see them kind of branch out. Websites that have a poor site structure and site architecture, all of these pages will just exist one after the other, and it'll look very just like compressed. a lot of things to see, unorganized, you can't figure out how to read it. This is exactly how Google is reading your website as well. So definitely bucketing things under the main themes of your website, under services, locations, even getting even more granular, doing location slash state slash city. These are all options that you can use, but it just helps again to make sure that Google is able to understand how to crawl your site appropriately. So what are some technical SEO best practices that you can use? So some things that you can do to optimize your technical SEO include implementing redirects to fix all of your site errors. So if you have 404 errors or 500 level errors, make sure you're correcting those just so Google doesn't think there's something happening on their end that's causing a lot of these errors to occur. This is especially important if you're seeing 500 level errors. That means you have an issue with your site hosting, which is extremely important and can harm your website a lot. If you have hosting issues and you're seeing these 500 errors, Google will eventually start to think, hey, if I'm hitting this 500 error, maybe I'm causing it, so I'm not going to crawl the site as frequently as I was before because I think it has something to do with me instead of it having to do with actually your site host. So you want to make sure that you're not on a shared hosting service. You want to make sure you're on an individual server, and that will ensure that you don't have any of these types of errors. Again, utilizing folder paths, so not having everything off of the root. It's fine if your blogs are off the root, but you definitely want to make sure your services, location pages, any major resources or about us pages are all kind of in that child-parent relationship. Removing those crawl delays, like I mentioned before, in your robots.txt file. That's an often overlooked thing that people don't always know. Yoast is an SEO plugin that a lot of people are using. If you download Yoast for the first time, it automatically generates a robots.txt file for you, and it automatically will place a crawl delay. So you want to make sure that you're going in and editing that to remove it. So that way Google is able to crawl your site as frequently as it wants to without you telling Google, hey, don't crawl my site as much or as quickly. Optimize your sitemap by removing all of these unnecessary URLs and sitemaps. So things like tags, authors, categories, unless they're critical to your business, or you have authors and you want to use your providers as your authors, that's fine. But if there's only one or two pages, or you're using your agency partner or just your company name as the author, just go ahead and remove it. Same thing with categories, especially if you have 20 different categories listed, you definitely don't need Google to crawl all those pages either. Another thing, like I mentioned before, make sure you're changing the frequencies and prioritization if you have an HTML sitemap. So a lot of people use SEO plugins to generate sitemaps, but if you do have an HTML file for it, just make sure that you're editing it so that way the prioritization is on those key pages and not your blogs having the same priority level as your services or your locations. Ensure every page on your site has an H1 and H2 and H3s on priority pages. So if on your blog you don't have a lot of time to go through that, just make sure at least your service pages and your location pages are using those H2s and H3s. And then lastly, utilize WP Rocket, Imagify, Smush, things like that to help improve slow page speeds and core web vitals. So make sure you're using those plugins. It'll help a lot, and it'll make sure that you guys are able to improve the WebP image rate on your website. Make sure that all of your images are there as well. Formulating your strategy. So defining your business goals. This is something that we wanted to place here because it's really important before you start going into your on-site SEO, your local SEO, or developing your roadmap. You just need to make sure that you've already defined certain goals to help you prioritize appropriately. So one, what are your core SEO KPIs? If you're looking to improve your rankings or your brand awareness and visibility, there are things that you'll want to accomplish first. So things like content, versus if you're looking to specifically use this as your lead driving source, you'll want to focus more on your location pages and making sure that you have a good user experience. Again, how mature is your business? Is your business extremely mature? You've been around for a long time, or is it brand new? If your business is brand new, it's going to be a lot more focused on brand awareness, visibility, and rankings, as opposed to focusing on some of that lead generation. What are your priority services? Again, SEO is a long game, but also it can't be watered down. So while you are able to target so many things with paid media with different geographics, different zip codes, different demographics, SEO doesn't always work in that same way. So you're going to want to make sure that you're just targeting 2 or 3 services at a time. Do that for about 6 months or so, or even 3 months at the bare minimum. And then you can move on to different service lines once you've started to establish that SEO value in those priority services. And then again, are you willing to play the long game for SEO? That's another big question that you have to ask yourself before you start looking at on-site, local, and creating roadmaps. If you're willing to play the long game, you'll definitely be able to do things a bit more strategically. But if you need SEO to work very quickly, then you want to focus more on that low-hanging fruit as opposed to, hey, let me do a lot of auditing and consolidating and things like that, since that takes a bit more time. So moving on to on-site SEO, combining local and on-site SEO strategies can maximize the performance of your key search queries. So on-site SEO can really boost your local visibility as a whole, and it really is going to be one of those main drivers of your ranking and traffic growth. While technical SEO is there to help support all of this, what Google is actually going to see is what's on the page to help improve those rankings, since technical SEO won't necessarily end up in rankings at the end of the day. So on-site refers to everything that you're going to do on page that's visible to a user, versus technical SEO is everything that's going to be in the back end of a website. So on-site is anything from content to UX to internal linking to image alt text, optimizing content, rewriting it, expanding it, all of that. And it's not enough to just create and optimize your content. You also have to consider a lot of other things. So the layout of your page, how much keywords are you using on each page? Is there a high target keyword density? Are you using thought leadership? Do you have EAT signals? All of that is going to be really, really important as well for ensuring that your on-site SEO is going to work. So looking at a phased content approach. So when we're looking at SEO, we want to start on-site SEO. We want to start with phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of different content. So you want to start expanding your services and location page content first, and then you're going to want to start looking at your blogs. Then you're going to want to focus on writing a lot of those condition pages and blogs as well that help qualify your services. The phase 1, when you're creating blogs, you'll want to focus on things like insurance, how to choose a clinic / a center. And then phase 3 is going to be that upper funnel content. So anything that's just awareness-based blogs, that'll increase your topical authority, your brand awareness, your EAT signals. But things in phase 3 won't always end up resulting in your leads. That's where your phase 1 and your phase 2 content is really going to help support your growth there. So what are some on-site SEO best practices? So how to effectively increase your local rankings and your visibility. You're going to want to first start by focusing on your target keyword density. Choose your priority and target keywords that you want your site to rank for that will help you drive those leads in the long run. And that's what you're going to want to insert into your headers, your metadata, throughout your body content. We like to say aim to use your target keywords about 1 to 2% of your word count. And if all of your locations are also in the exact same state, if you have 10, that's completely fine. Start using that state in your headers as well, because you won't always be able to target the specific city in all of your headers, like your service pages, your about us pages, things like that. But you can at least target the state. So if all of your locations are in North Carolina, you can start saying ABA services in North Carolina or orthopedic services in North Carolina, and that'll also help improve your local visibility. Develop a strong internal linking strategy. So if you are a multi-state business, create blogs that are state specific. So talk about the insurance that's in your specific state. How does it work? What is the process for getting things covered by insurance? And then internally link back in that CTA paragraph or throughout when you start talking about the services that you specifically offer, link back to those different cities in that specific state. That's also going to be really, really beneficial for increasing the internal links back to your city pages, since those are really going to drive your leads, and Google places the most importance on the main navigation and pages that are internally linked to the most. And then next is building your topical authority. This is such an important part of SEO, is making sure that people are able to get all of the information possible about your industry and about your business on your website without having to go somewhere else for supplemental information. This helps to boost your EAT signals because it's just letting Google know, hey, like we know what we're talking about. We're a thought leader in this space. We have quotes from providers. They know what they're talking about. They have credentials, things like that. So you'll want to make sure that you're doing that from blog content and conditions content as well. Then looking at your Google business profile. So Google business profiles are a gateway to your bottom funnel leads and conversions, especially when it comes to local based queries and near me queries. So map pack rankings can make a significant difference, like I said, for anything that will be localized or near me in the search results. So some things that you can do to optimize your Google business profile are adding area served. So oftentimes you'll rank #1 in the area directly for your business address, but you might not rank very well once you start spreading out that radius. So anywhere from 5 to 10 miles, you might start seeing your rankings drop. You might be in position 8 or even outside of the top 20. Some things that we do to combat that are just adding 6 to 8 additional areas served in the back end of your profile. This isn't something that users necessarily can see, but Google can see that you serve these additional cities, towns, counties, anything like that, and can start showing you and increasing your visibility in those areas. Services. So making sure you add every single one of your services in the back end. Again, this is not user facing. This is just for Google to understand, hey, these are the services we provide. So if someone is looking for, primary care in Dallas, they're able to see that you provide primary care services. You do flu shots, you do all these different things. So just make sure you're listing them out as much as you can and making sure that you're using the proper categories as well. Because selecting the proper Google business profile categories is also really, really important. And one thing that I wanted to add there, you do not have to have a description for that part of the Google business profile. So if you're adding a service, you don't need to type out a paragraph. Again, it's not visible to users. So the only person that will see that description is Google. Adding products as services. So this is something in tandem that you can do when we've seen really, really great success with engagement rates, increasing your profile actions, is just making sure that you're adding products as services as products in your Google business category. So people see products and you immediately assume, well, I don't sell products, I provide services. But that's okay. You're definitely able to add that in as well. So you'll just want to create a little section. You're able to add a link back to your actual service page, provide a description of what service you provide, add images, things like that. It just really helps when people are scrolling through your profile and they can see specifically all the services that you provide on the front end, and then go directly to the page that correlates with that service that they found. Lastly is reviews. Reviews are extremely necessary to improve your map pack rankings. So you're always going to make sure that you are soliciting reviews as much as you can. I know it's not always possible for all industries, but if there are things that you can do to generate reviews, definitely do them. It helps with your map pack rankings. And also it's really just great for people who are searching for your services. And if you are the only 5-star business around a bunch of people who might only have 3.5 or 4.1 stars, you're also more likely to get that lead. And then moving on to the SEO roadmap. So prioritization is extremely important when it comes to SEO. You want to make sure that you're just focusing on the right things at the very beginning and then leaving things that may not have as much of an impact for later on, whether that's 6 months to 12 months down the line. But you'll first want to use the ICE method. So impact, confidence, and ease. I will say though, just because something has high effort or ease doesn't mean that it's not going to have a really high impact on your site. So I think people sometimes get afraid, hey, that's a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of effort. I don't know if we're going to have the right resources. Sometimes that is just what's going to move the needle for you. So that's why it's important to use this ICE method. So that way you can say, hey, I'm confident. It is a 10 out of 10 for confidence that if we do this really high effort task, that it is going to have a high impact. So that's something that I definitely wanted to point out. And then focus on low hanging fruit first. Like I mentioned before, if you know, you don't have a lot of resources, you don't have a lot of time, and you need to prove the value of SEO very quickly, here are some things that you can do to make that fast impact. So metadata optimization, title tags are a direct ranking factor. So if you include keywords in your title tags, it's going to help boost your rankings and get you to page one pretty quickly. So just make sure you're using localized keywords in your title tags. Also use keywords in your meta descriptions. It's not necessarily a direct ranking factor as far as meta descriptions go, but it can improve your click-through rate. And as you can see, it always bolds it whenever you look something up if it is being used in the meta description as well. Header optimizations, also a huge quick win. Like I mentioned in the technical SEO section, H1s are extremely, extremely important. It helps Google understand what your page is about. So making sure you have those H1s and making sure that when you can use target keywords and local keywords in your H2s and H3s are also going to move the needle very, very quickly. Content and blog audits. So this is one of those very high effort, but very high impact situations. Audit all of your content. Make sure that you're removing any content that's duplicate, consolidate it, redirect it. If it's a thin piece of content, decide, should we get rid of this, or is it actually a good topic and we just need to rewrite it and expand on it? These are the things that you're always going to want to make sure that you're looking at the very, very beginning, just so you can start improving those rankings very, very quickly, especially in situations where you have a lot of keyword cannibalization issues due to duplication. We definitely see this a lot between the blog and service pages. You tend to cover the exact same information. So just making sure you have a way to set those apart is going to be really helpful. And then just to wrap things up, again, amplifying your local impact. A successful local SEO strategy isn't just your Google business profile. It touches all aspects of SEO. So ensuring you have a strong technical SEO foundation is at least the bare minimum to get you to where you need to go. Completing on-site optimizations with your target local keywords is the next thing that you can do. Fully build out your Google business profile. Use those strategies that we mentioned before, adding those areas served, adding your services as products, defining your business objectives to make sure that it's very clear cut and all of the stakeholders understand at the end of the day, what are our objectives? Do we just want to grow that visibility, or do we need this to be a lead driver? Because it's definitely going to change the roadmap that you create. And then again, use the ICE method to determine your near-term SEO roadmap. If you need to determine an SEO roadmap for a quarter to 6 months, make sure that you're focusing on the things that are going to have that high impact. If it's not going to have if it's going to have a low impact, kind of push that off to 6 to 12 months if it's not going to make a difference or impact anything else as well. So those are all of the things that we discussed today, and I'm definitely able to answer questions for a couple more minutes. I know that was a lot to digest, and you'll be able to see this recording, see the presentation again. Definitely watch Rob's as well, so you can learn more about, you know, developing and defining those KPIs and goals for your business as well. But let me go through the chat, or if anyone has a new question right now, I'm also able to answer. So, should you create a service page for each location? No. This is something that only works in very specific scenarios. And when it comes to healthcare, I don't recommend very often in environments like home care, like home health, not home health, healthcare, that's not what I mean. I mean home improvement. So home improvement is an area where this is a very common strategy, but for healthcare, no, you don't want to create a new service page for every location, because that goes back into those duplication issues that I mentioned before. If you're dealing with a lot of duplication, no page is going to rank well because Google's not going to know which page to rank what keyword. So I definitely don't recommend that situation at all. Let's see. Lots of questions. If you see negative impacts after a Google algo update, what is the best way to identify what Google may have changed to cause the changes? So really just keeping up with what Google is mentioning for their algorithm updates. They all often have names. So if you see helpful content update, that means that Google was specifically targeting content. So do you have high quality content? Do you have good EAT signals? Is your content popular? Things like that. That's what the helpful content update is targeting. Now, on the other hand, if you see a core algorithm update, Google is targeting a variety of things. It's just looking at all of their ranking factors, not just content. Like, is your technical foundation good? Do you have a quality user experience? Is your content good? Things like that. So there's a lot of different reasons why um, Google might have caused you to have a negative impact. Um, I know we are short on time. I'm going to try to take one more question before we end, but also if you do have other questions as well, join our Q&A session at 3:30, and I definitely will be able to answer some more questions there. What is the best tech stack mix that would help your team gather data, analyze, and optimize for SEO? So I definitely recommend, as far as a tech stack goes, SEMrush is a huge one. It's going to help you with ranking, site health, just generally looking at optimization opportunities. There's a lot of features inside the products. So I definitely recommend looking there. Ahrefs is another one that you can look at. Additionally, Screaming Frog, I recommend that for technical SEO. So you can always crawl your website if you're going to be acquiring a lot of new companies, or even if you're starting new websites, things like that. You're going to want to make sure that everything is working correctly, that things were migrated appropriately. So definitely recommend that there. But that is all the time we have. So thank you guys so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And we will talk soon at 3:30.